Hello and welcome to this chat about the slow movement. If you don't know anything about the slow movement, that's totally fine. You hopefully will in the next 15-20 minutes. If you're a bit of an expert, that's fine too. Hopefully you can add to our thinking and join in the next chat. So for context, I'm Di Gates, founder of collaboration agency Stick Theory, and my main job is helping companies communicate better. So for me, that means helping them look at their customers, their employees, their future employees as real people, so that services and products and comms can be planned around things that actually matter to people in the real world. So when I came across the slow movement, end of last year now, it really resonated with me because the importance of human connection is really its central tenet. It's the key philosophy in the movement. And it just felt important. It just felt to me in what I do for a living, it was important. And its importance really is just, it's grown for me in the last few months while the world's gone upside down, because now I think more than ever, human connections are key. They're so important, and we've got a real choice to make as we move through and through the crazy world we're living in at the moment on which of the relationships have we perhaps been undervaluing, which do we need to pay more attention to, which parts of our life do we want to speed back up as we move through the current situation, which do we want to keep slow? And so the slow movement for me it's kind of a lens through which we can look at the world at the moment and the changes that are happening to maybe make some sense out of it. But before we delve into the slow movement more and what it's about, I want to introduce the smart lady that introduced me to the whole concept about 7 or 8 months ago now, Sam Richardson. Hi Sam.
Hi Di, thanks for the nice introduction.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we first started talking about this, I know that it was, obviously none of what has gone on over the last few months have happened, but even then, as we were talking, it felt like, we really needed to explore this whole idea as to how we can start really nurturing and preserving this human connection. I'm a CX consultant and service designer, and I've been working in and around customer experience and contact centres about 20 years. And the agenda's always been, how fast can we go, how lean can we make it, how much waste can we take out, and I just think the faster the world goes, the more we need to start thinking, how do we stop and make sure that we keep these connections. So yeah, I guess that's how we started talking about this, really.
It is, and so to maybe bring everyone to the same level, it's worth taking a moment just to slowing down, in fact, to just be clear about what the slow movement is. And it didn't start as the slow movement, it actually started as the slow food movement back in the mid-80s as an uprising against McDonald's looking to open a new restaurant right in the centre of Rome. And there was, I guess, a clash of cultures, of values. On the one hand, this American food giant bringing with it cultural homogenization, harmful farming techniques, and like you say, a real focus on speed of production, speed of consumption at all costs almost. And this challenged and clashed with local values and the belief that, food is better, it's healthier for us, for everyone, for the environment, if it's cultivated, cooked, consumed locally and at a more natural pace. And so the slow movement was born, like you say, Sam, out of this need to challenge the fact that faster is better. And it had some warnings about the fact that faster is actually quite dangerous. Faster can stop us being good, stop us being responsible. If we're too fast, we can't think about the human impact. We can't think about the people involved in the chain. And as business in the last 20 years, while I've been working as a marketing consultant, it has got faster and faster, enabled by more effective, more affordable tech. We are digitizing, we are automating, we are setting up self-service products, we are implementing AI instead of more costly human contact. And it's not that this is bad, but what the slow movement is doing is saying, just slow down and take care, make some careful choices about which moments of human connection we should automate or we should speed up, which moment should we actually slow down, so that we don't sacrifice real human connections purely for speed. And I think for me as a marketeer, that's really important, because I don't want to be advising and helping people to grow their organizations at all costs. I would love to work with organizations who set meaningful KPIs where they understand what value means, not just in a monetary sense, but, you know, how do we set targets for and measure how richly we're enriching our human connections, how good are we, how ethical are we? It's not just speed and money. And I know, Sam, you work at a much deeper level with organisations. What's your experience in recent years? Are things changing?
Yeah, I agree. Things, I think there's certainly this huge wave of digitization and people seeing AI and chatbots and all the rest of it and self-service as a way to remove costs from their business. But, you know, I think it's worth still bearing in mind that there's something like more than 12 million people in this country aren't connected to the internet. There's this real kind of digital underclass in the country. So the more we speed things up and digitize, the more we're just marginalizing people. And who knows what's going to happen with as we emerge out of pandemic and lockdown and the impact that it has on businesses and the pressure that that's going to put on the households. So there is that element to it that, you know, things are really have been speeding up that way. But I think there's like a demographic pressure as well, because organizations are going to have to change. Gen Z, we know for them what the values, the ethics of an organization and how that speaks to their own values and ethics is so important in the choices that they make. And we're seeing this in consumer choices now. You know, people are in their masses actively choosing to put their money where they believe is the most ethical and the most you know, value driven organization. We've seen it now. You know, look at what happened with Amazon's came under loads of flack when the pandemic started because of the way that they were treating people. Travel large, even luxury brands like Victoria Beckham came under for a load of you know, criticism for furloughing people when they didn't need to. And you know, I think that these values are only going to get stronger, and we can only have value and resonate with our consumers or customers when we are building that human connection with them. Mary Porter said something really interesting a few weeks ago in one of her podcasts. She talked about this evolution whereby you're not even going to be a customer anymore, but you're a follower, because how you relate to a brand is going to be so deeply wound into the values that you have and the connection that you have with them, that you'll be creating followers and not just creating consumers, which I think is really interesting. And it plays into all sorts of things, right? So even now we're seeing that it's forcing, we need short, traceable, transparent supply chains. That's become really obvious. I think that'll keep going. You know, greatly reduced service offerings so that we can be razor sharp about what we're focusing on and doing it really well. You know, Riverford have done this brilliantly during the pandemic. They kind of like squashed down their whole range and said, we're going to make sure we give people exactly what it is they need during this so that we can deliver to more people. And you know, marketing, you know better than anybody, the way that we're marketing and advertising is already changing and is going to have to keep changing, because that inauthenticity just doesn't wash anymore. So, you know, I think we're seeing a lot of change now, but it has definitely been building over the last few years.
And do you think that a lot of this is understandable or can be viewed through this idea of slowing down? Is it in order to make these significant changes and brave changes, these, you know, you're talking about a reduction in the number of services, a slimming down, that's anti-corporate, isn't it? That's not what we're used to.
No.
Is it possible to make these, or how important is this principle of slowing and looking at connections? How important is that for companies to make these changes?
I mean, I think it's going to have to be essential, because ultimately you need to know your customers. You can only do that by doing that great research, slowing down, connecting, really starting to understand what people's motivations are, what they want from the service. You know, organizations are going to have to be so much smarter about what they deliver. You can only do that by really taking the time to say, okay, what is it that we're really doing here? What service do we really want to provide? And who are our customers and what do they want? You know, historically, organizations have kind of built their services out of a component of emerging technology and knee-jerk reaction to something that's gone wrong. I think now, and we're seeing it, service design has just kind of gone through the roof as a job role. But you know, people are already taking that step back, slowing down, saying, right, okay, what do we really want this end-to-end experience to look like? But I think, you know, we can't just be looking at that maximum efficiency anymore, and that whole self-service. It really is about where can we start to add the value? Where are these moments that really matter for customers, and where can we make sure that we are resonating and that we are creating value and a relationship?
Yeah.
You can only do that by slowing down and taking time to do it. It's not something that can be rushed through.
I agree, and as I said at the start, when we first started talking about this several months ago, I had this sense that it was somehow important. At that time, probably just important to me in terms of what I do for a living. But in the last couple of months, it started to become more and more on my mind, the slow movement and some of the principles. And I started to try and unpick yesterday and today why that is. So I've come up with, I'm going to read them, because I've come up with seven reasons why, for me, these principles of the slow movement, the slowing down and looking at people, they're really important to us as individuals and businesses, I think, as we move through the coming months and we're starting to plan for change. I'm going to share these 7 reasons as starting points more than anything else, and hopefully people might want to join in our next conversation and we can unpick them and add some more. But 7 reasons why I think slow movement is useful to us now as a framework. The first is that we've faced and we've gone through, this word's overused, but unprecedented, the level of change and the rate of change. And I actually think a lot of us are in shock by the way in which some of our human connections and our relationships have been ripped away from us, family, friends, colleagues, peers. And the slow movement really has been preparing for this for a while. The slow movement set out, you know, a prediction that things with businesses would speed up to the level at which real human interactions would just be replaced. They would be gone and we'd be in shock. And there's a Norwegian philosopher, Fløystad, who summarised it, and this really resonates with me for where we are at the moment. He said that the only thing for certain is that everything changes. The rate of change increases. If you want to hang on, you'd better speed up. That's the message of today. But Fløystad said, it could be useful to remind everyone that our basic human needs never change. The need to be seen and appreciated. It is the need to belong. This is given only through slowness in human relations. In order to master change, we have to recover slowness, reflection, and togetherness. And to me, with what we're going through at the moment, there's a great sense of collectivism here, and that's so important. So I think, you know, the level of change we're going through and the first-hand experience we've all had of our human connections being ripped away from us in so many ways means the slow movement can maybe help us look at some of that and understand why that's had such an impact. The second reason is we're having to ask, and I think for a while we're going to have to keep asking some really big human questions of ourselves and of our friends, families and colleagues, and questions like, you know, am I okay? Do I feel safe? Do I feel happy? Are you okay? Do you feel safe? And these are really big questions that can't be time boxed and answered quickly. They're almost open-ended. They need to be considered and discussed and thought about from the really big bits of our brain, and accessing these parts of our brains and understanding questions like, are we well? Do we feel safe? They need slow thinking, and there's a lot of writing and thought given to the concept of slow thought, and I think we need that at the moment. 3 and 4 are linked in that in these pandemic times in lockdown, our understanding of value and our understanding of time have changed radically. They've been challenged. In terms of value, you only need to look at what we now understand by the term key worker. You know, a key worker is someone of extreme value who we couldn't be living without at the moment. And their value has got nothing to do with their hourly rate. And in fact, it's a complete opposite. Their value is antithetic to the amount that they're paid. So this process is challenging our understanding of what value means, and it's taking it away from monetary value and towards human value. And I think that's a key proponent of slow movement that we need to continue as we move through this journey. And the same for time, our understanding of time, our natural rhythms of life. We're not going to work at the same time coming back. Our schools are operating differently. And we're in a position now where we can choose, perhaps, some of those of us in a privileged position, which parts of our lives and our businesses we want to start to speed up again, which we want to stay slow, which of the relationships we want to place more value on and nurture more, and perhaps those that we haven't missed and aren't important. You know, these processes, these challenges to value and to time have started. Let's continue them. 5, 6 and 7 are the reasons why I think slow is important. Lockdowns changed the way that we work and the way that we live. We've all blended. We work from home, we live here, we educate at home. Our needs have all mixed and mushed into one, you know. So for brands wanting to engage and sell to us and work with us or follow us, as Mary Porter says, you really need to understand these new versions of us. They need to understand that our needs have changed, that we don't have the same delineation between parts of our lives anymore. And if brands want to grow and thrive, they need to slow down and re-understand us, speak to us again, listen to us again, treat us as individuals, or they're not going to survive, they're not going to grow. And the last couple of reasons, this one to me is the most interesting, is that I don't think the nature of speed and the appropriacy of pace has ever been a hotter topic than it is right now. You know, everybody is speaking about, are we easing lockdown restrictions too quickly? Are we going back to schools too quickly? The entire nation and globally are having these discussions about the appropriacy of pace, and they're real life and death situations. You know, there's an awareness of speed and appropriacy of pace now in my lifetime that's never been here. And we're seeing daily examples of when we get it right and when it's wrong. You know, when we needed ventilators, fast innovation, fund it, make it happen. People were in danger of not being able to breathe. We needed to fast track the innovation and the build of new ventilators. But lockdown, easing of lockdowns, that can't be done quickly. That has to be done slowly. And the debate and the discussion and the collaboration around it is key. And we're seeing when things that should be slow are done quickly, like Trump recommending his hydroxychloroquine or whatever it is, you know, making recommendations, or at least, you know, second-hand kind of recommendations that are costing people's lives if things are done too quickly and ill-researched. And so the final reason why slow movement's important is humanity needs us. Humanity needs us to really slow down and consider some of these big questions like, how are you? Some of these recommendations and the new orders and new systems that we're going to be setting up, they need to be done with intrinsic understanding of the human connections that are important in these processes. And I think the slow movement really allows us to the time and a way to look at these, to plan human connections, to understand it, to start listening again and choose where we should or should not be speeding back up again. Sam?
Yeah, I agree. And kind of on that last point, you know, we can take it even wider than this. So one of the, I think one of the most interesting writers out there is a woman called Shoshana Zuboff. Massive heavyweight, a brain far bigger than either of us. And she wrote this, she's written this amazing book about surveillance capitalism and how we're moving to this whole, you know, the impact that the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitter, kind of less so. I think that they've ended up being a bit of a hero today as opposed to Facebook, but just talks about this as always being on. It's a huge book. I can't go into every point that she makes, but she talks about this idea that we're always on and that we are homogenizing because they are using all of our data, all of our information, and feeding us all of this stuff that they want us to be fed all the time. And it's marketing essentially. But the thing that she said that I think really sticks with me is that she likened this period of time to the Industrial Revolution. And what she said was, the Industrial Revolution has stripped the earth of its natural resources, and now we're paying the consequence for it. You know, climate is the other literally burning topic that we have now. And what she's saying is, if we're not careful, we're going to do exactly the same thing to the planet, to our own innate human nature. Because if we homogenize so much and we're always on and we are governed by all of these algorithms that we know are skewed, data that we know is wrong, then we are in real danger of just becoming so monosyllabic and not being true to our human nature anymore, which is another reason why I think your 7 points are absolutely spot on. And it is about how can we almost how can we almost rescue this human connection and this human nature? And we can only do it by slowing down and, as you say, totally valuing the connections that we have and really nurturing them. And that's on a personal sense as well as on an organizational and a corporate sense. You know, how do we nurture what is most important to us? And what is most important to us are the connections that we build, because, you know, without customers there's nothing, right? And you're not a family without a collection of people that come together. And it's the same, you know, for me it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think now is the opportunity that we have to have this conversation, and that's all this is, isn't it, Sam? This is you and I coming together over a concept that has connected with both of us personally and professionally, that we feel was important anyway, but is even more so now, and not just important, but I think useful. The slow movement sets out some thinking, some examples, because it's not just slow food. We've got slow cities, slow shopping, slow design, slow tech. It is, I guess, a collective movement and a set of stories, examples, philosophies and principles that we both think are valuable and useful to people at the moment to review and reflect and use as a way of understanding what's happening and how perhaps we can come out of this or move through this thinking differently and doing better. And so this video, this chat, is an open invitation to anyone out there who's is interested in some of the things we've been saying or talking about. And what we'd like to do is hold another chat in probably late June, where we will invite more of you to come and take part. Feel free to rip apart any of the thoughts that we've had so far, or to add to them, build on them, agree, disagree. But we would love to widen out this conversation about the slow movement to more people who are interested in it and would like to take part. So if you'd like to take part in the next chat, just drop me an email, di@sticktheory.co.uk, and it'd be really good to have you join in. Sam, any closing thoughts?
No, I think you summed it up. I think it would be great to broaden out the conversation, because I think that there's something that we could really do here, whether that be a set of guidelines, a framework, something. I think it's like quoting the new normal, right? It's one thing to talk about these things, but it's another thing to say, okay, pragmatically, and you and I are both pragmatic people, you know, how do we build a framework to help people really be able to stop and think, right, am I doing the right thing here? Is what I'm going to do going to cause some unintended consequences that I don't want to happen? You know, so I think it'd be great to bring people in to start to get that kind of conversation going.
Right, perfect. So yeah, if you want to take part in that conversation, it will probably be on Zoom. It will probably be late June. Drop me an email, di@sticktheory.co.uk, and we'll send an invitation out to you and hopefully chat with you soon. Thank you.